Hey, welcome to the channel. I'm Chris, super happy to see you here. Today, I want to talk with you guys about 3 reasons why I believe that Tencent is still a very good investment. So without wasting your time, let's just jump right into it. The first reason is their growth. They're an absolute compounding machine. In the last 5 years, they actually compounded by 24% year over year. So we can see from 237 billion renminbi in revenue all the way to 553 billion. So absolute crazy growth. Now we see that in the last 12 months, they did have a little bit of a slowdown, but let me explain what happened. So as you probably know, China has been very strict with their policies and lockdowns in China, and also they have been regulating the internet industry a lot. Because of that, 2022 has been a real difficult year for most tech companies. We can see that in the June quarter of 2022 from Tencent, where they actually reported a decline in growth to 134 billion renminbi in revenue. But since then, we are actually back to growth, and we see that we grew 5% since then to 140 billion renminbi. And that's almost to the same level like we were in September of 2021. But continuing down that financial statement, the picture gets better and better. Have a look at their gross profits as example. Gross profits year over year are generally flat, but quarter over quarter, we are up 7%. Same thing for operating profits. Year over year, we are still down a little bit, 3%, but quarter over quarter, we are actually up 72%. And profits again here, quarter over quarter, we are up to almost 40 billion from 20 billion. So 102% growth quarter over quarter. That's really, really good growth. So in the short term, we see that Tencent is coming back to that explosive growth that they actually had. And it starts to look even better if we consider earnings per share, where we see that we are up 114%. So from 1.9 renminbi to 4.1 renminbi per share. This has of course mainly to do with the increase in revenue again, but it also has to do with the share repurchase program that Tencent is doing. And they're being very smart about it. The prices are so cheap right now, so they're buying back a lot of shares. I think so far this year, they have bought back almost $3 billion in shares. Now jumping over to the second reason why I love Tencent so much is because of their balance sheet and their financial position. They're an extremely strong company. Their balance sheet is extremely strong. Have a look at this. They're currently holding total cash of 315 billion renminbi on their balance sheet, which is extremely strong. That's roughly around 45 billion in cash. Of course, they do have also debt. They actually have a little bit more debt. They have 342 billion in debt. So they have a net debt, but a very, very small net debt considering the size of the company. So if Tencent wanted to, they could almost immediately pay off all their debt. So that is really good to see as shareholders. So I don't really have to worry about bankruptcy or liquidity problems here. Additionally to that strong cash position, they also have investments of roughly 123 billion dollars, and that is just fabulous, right? So they're investing in a lot of companies, and if I hold Tencent, I don't need to worry about any of this. They're just investing their money into different companies, diversifying, and that's really just fantastic. And if there's a company that they don't want anymore, we saw that a few months ago with Jingdong, JD.com, right? They actually sold a part of their holding and they just distributed all the gains to shareholders. So I got a chunk of money from that, and yeah, I'm totally fine with that, right? Thank you very much. And additional to the strong balance sheet that they have, they are also just a cash printing machine. So in the last 12 months of September 2022, they made 161 billion renminbi in cash flows. And the best part of it, their capex was only around 26 billion. So everything in between is free cash flow. And for those of you who are subscribed to the channel, you know I love free cash flow. I'm a free cash flow investor. And I just see here that they're like roughly 130 billion in free cash flow. And it's just a joy to see, right? Now, the question is what Tencent is doing with all that money. Well, part of it goes to share repurchases, like we've just talked about, right? And a part of it is going into the investments that we mentioned. And the third part is actually going into dividends. So you see they distributed roughly 14.4 billion renminbi in dividends, and we see how that is steadily growing over time. So Tencent is a dividend growth investment, and I do enjoy that, right? They're not just performing very good, it's not just a powerhouse, they have a good balance sheet, but also over time I will compound my dividends that I earn from the company. And my third and last point why I think Tencent is a great investment right now is their current share price. Have a look at this. They're actually at the moment trading at 280 Hong Kong dollars on the Hong Kong exchange. But if we look at the peak, they peaked roughly 2 years ago in January of 2021 at over 650 Hong Kong dollar. So we are down more than 50% at the moment. But we see that the company is coming back to growth. We're getting back into that, 10-cent cycle of compounding, but the stock price is still very much depressed. So I believe that's a good time to look into companies and keep an eye on companies like Tencent, where the fundamentals of the business are recovering, but the stock price is lagging behind and still kind of has to wake up to that. So those were my 3 main points why I believe Tencent is still a great investment. Now, additionally to that, I also think that the media is putting a bit of bad light on Tencent. I give you an example regarding the regulations. They said, oh my God, China is regulating how many hours minors can play computer game. That's the end of Tencent, right? But actually it's not, because Tencent by themselves reported that due to those regulations, they lost in total played hours on all of their games. They lost 0.7% of total played hours. So less than 1%. They actually, it didn't affect Tencent at all. They lost almost nothing. And they said that adult gaming increased so much during that time that the effect of that regulation of minors almost didn't affect them at all. So always, from my point of view, always keep an eye on the underlying business, on the numbers, what's really happening, and don't look too much into media and don't follow too much trends and fads and what people are scared about and so on. Just keep an eye on the business. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, give a thumbs up, subscribe if you're interested in more content like this, and then I'll see you soon again.